When I go skiing, there's nothing else you're thinking about other than going down the mountain. The adrenaline rush, the speed, all of it, I love it. I feel grateful for the fact that I get to go skiing, and I feel like I've achieved something over my diabetes, because it's at that point where I'm not being controlled by my condition. I moved up to adult care when I was 18, and at the same time I was moving into university for my first year of my undergraduate degree. Before transitioning, when I spoke to my doctors, my nurses, we did talk a few times about moving to adult care and what it would be like. The talks we had about transitioning, it all sort of seemed to make sense, because I was becoming an adult, I was becoming more independent, going to university, which required me to look after my diabetes more. I chose to move my care to my university as opposed to keeping it at home, because I wanted that close support, so I could always have people on hand if there was anything quite wrong with my diabetes. And I also it kind of came with the independence with moving to university. I wanted to move my whole self into this new area. Moving from pediatrics to adult care, there's a lot of differences. So for instance, there's less staff at appointments. Now I generally just see my doctor, or just a doctor and nurse. The frequency of appointments, instead of having them every 3 months where you're getting more regular contact, now you're only getting maybe once every 6 months an appointment. And that kind of has a knock-on effect with the sort of rapport you build up with your doctor. Although our appointments are thorough and we have good conversation, it's not the same sort of relationship I had with my pediatrics team. There's more of an emphasis on explaining the complications and checking up on any potential complications. I think this is because since you're in adult care, you can have more of a down-to-earth, serious conversation. So I think a lot more of the conversation might be revolving around making sure you're keeping your diabetes in check so you can avoid any nasty complications in the future. I think there's lots of benefits of moving up to adult care, especially if you're a bit younger and maybe a bit worried. That transition can also help like other areas of your life. It can give you a lot more responsibility, more than anything, which is really key for becoming an adult anyway. Being able to still do my hobbies during my transition period was key for me, because the transition period can be very uncertain for some and quite frustrating sometimes. I feel like once I've done a gym session or skiing and I've managed my diabetes through it, then I kind of feel a sense of accomplishment at the end. I've done something that my diabetes hasn't controlled me or restricted me from doing. When I was moving up to adult care, I managed to get myself a patch pump and a flash monitor. I think the impact at the time was a little bit uncertain, just because I knew that I was transitioning, but I also knew that I had these new medical devices that I had to get used to and be able to use on my own. But I think the great thing is the nature of the medical devices were there to help me rather than to make my diabetes more complicated. So initially was quite daunting, quite scary. But as I moved through the year of transitioning, I realized these devices were there to help me, and they did improve my diabetes care amazingly. So I'm thankful for getting them. Reaching out and finding my own community of diabetics was important to me, just because being at university for quite long periods of time, even though you've got friends around you, you can still feel quite lonely, especially being away from your family. I found out about a small diabetes society on Facebook through a volunteer for Diabetes UK, and through that I messaged the owner of the group, and then we eventually met up. We talked about the group and where she was thinking of going with it, and we sort of reminisced on coming to university in first year. You're a little bit isolated, obviously with the transition as well. So having that support group there would have been so handy for us, so why shouldn't we try create a society that could benefit other diabetics? I found, since diabetes is so personal to me, sharing my experiences, sharing how my diabetic care is right now, it helped me greatly. It's just like talking to your best friend, even if you don't know someone. Just because they've got diabetes, you can converse about anything pretty much.